Good morning, folks, and let's talk a little bit about Thanksgiving dinner. I hope you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving dinner. Mine was delicious. But Thanksgiving dinner always brings up for me what I did this Thanksgiving dinner, which is that I bit my tongue. Now, biting your tongue hurts. Obviously, this is not news for you, right? But the thing about biting your tongue is when you've done it once, you've got a big mouthful of, in my case, ham, you're biting on it so enthusiastically that you bite your tongue. I'm talking a little funny, right? Because I did that. Okay, so you bite your tongue, and that hurts. It's painful. You recoil from it instantly, and you say, wow, don't want to do that again. Obviously not, but here's the joke. Which is, and you've all lived through this, by the way, you've all done it once at least. You've bitten your tongue eating something, but then your tongue does this thing after you bite it, which is that it swells up. So you've already damaged yourself. But once you've done that, when your tongue swells up, all that happens is you are infinitely more likely to bite it again, which you do. Every time you bite it, the likelihood of you biting it again goes up, right? Because it swells up, it puffs up, and it makes the tongue into a bigger target in your mouth. You just bite it again, and again, and again, and again. The initial injury, in effect, helps to cause subsequent injuries. That's how that works. And when I think about that, the biting the tongue, the swelling up, the re-biting it, that kind of thing, what I think about is our sin and our conscience. What happens when somebody sins initially, when they go against what God wants, and sometimes it's very big, sometimes it's very small, but when they sin and go against what God wants, it's like that first bite into the tongue. It hurts, it's painful, but unless you're thinking actively about it, it makes it more likely that you're going to do it again. It makes it more likely that you are going to do that again, to go back down that same road again. In effect, the initial progress into that makes it more likely that further wounds will be done. Now, the difference between biting your tongue and repeated sinning is that if you bite your tongue and it hurts, you don't want to do it again. Like, you actively avoid it, you stop, you say, wow, whoa, I'm going to try my best to chew around this giant muscle in my mouth that now hurts because I've sliced into it with my teeth. Okay. But the thing about sinfulness is every time you sin, it makes it more likely that you'll do it again, but that you'll try and justify it, right? This is how sins change between something you do and become something you are. That's very different indeed. Paul warns us about that in the book of Romans, where he cautions us against sinning against ourselves, because even if something is a victimless crime, if it has no victim whatsoever, if you can get away with something all day, every day, if you can steal a file online and nobody will ever find out, if you can download tons of pornography and nobody's actually hurt by that, nobody's wounded by that, you just got away with it, and there was no immediate victim, the victim is you. That's who the victim is. You've bitten down, and now it makes it more and more likely that you'll just do it again and again and again, because your sin will move between something you do and will become something you are, and that's way harder to get out of the way. Once an injury becomes chronic, once it becomes just a thing, a permanent disability or disfigurement or whatever, it becomes part of who you are. Your body never heals back into place after that. There is a scar, there is a remnant, a wound that just never heals, that stays there for forever. And for us in our sinfulness, that's never the point, that's never the purpose. You are supposed to be healed and cured and made whole. But in all honesty, what happens when we sin in the same sins repeatedly over and over and over again is we eventually stop understanding that it's a problem. We eventually stop fighting against it. We eventually stop saying that this is a problem, it's a deficiency, it's a moral failing of mine. And we instead say, this is just how I am, this is how things are, I'm not that bothered or that troubled. And it becomes, no jokes, part of who you are. Now, Jesus is hard as nails with people when it comes to this. He is, of course, a law gospel preacher. And what Christ does is he uses the law to terrify the consciences of those who are very comfortable. But he uses the gospel to build up those who are already dismayed and already discomfortable. So when it comes to the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the sinners, I mean, Christ builds them up because their consciences are already troubled and afraid. They know they have a problem, right? They're well aware that they have a problem. That's as clear as day to anybody who would look. But to those who are fat and happy and content and think about themselves as being relatively sinless, Christ has incredibly hard words for them, really difficult things to hear. And the reason that he does is because he knows that they have these sorts of wounds that, if not addressed, will become like permanent disfigurements, permanent scars, permanent disabilities or whatever, where somebody will just keep on committing the same sin, keep on entering into the same territorial wounds over and over and over again, to the point that eventually they won't think it's a problem anymore, and they'll just be permanently wounded, disfigured, damaged in some way. But we're never supposed to be there. Christ has these harsh words for us in order that we may be saved from ourselves. Paul has these harsh words to say to us in order that we might not sin against ourselves, and we might avoid destruction, not just eternally, by the way. This isn't just like a pie-in-the-sky thing, which it is that too, but it's not just a thing where we think about eternity. It's a here and now question as well. Do you want to be morally disfigured and damaged and wounded in the here and now? Or is this the sort of thing you might want to avoid? And the only way you avoid it is to actually deal with the fact that you've got a wound that isn't healing, that you have damage that is not being resolved, that you are wounded and damaged and hurt and grieved in some way that you would like to have addressed. And that's why Christ, right? That's why you have Christ in the first place, because he's the one that actually acknowledges that that's the case. Anybody else, any other great moral teacher, will eventually relax their morals to fit what is possible. They will take you and say, well, we know that you can only do so much, therefore we'll construct our morals around what you are able to do. Christ will be unreasonable from the word go. He will say, I don't give you what is easy or what is doable, I give you what is right. And you have to deal with that. When our consciences are troubled by that, instead of relaxing the moral law and saying, well, we're just designed to be disfigured, I guess. We're just designed to have tongues that are swollen and bleeding in our mouths. That's just how things are. But in the words of the scriptures, it says that we can have a still more excellent way. Forgiveness, right? Forgiveness and conviction in what is good and right and true and honorable and noble. And that's not the same thing as just relaxing and giving up and quitting. That it's very, very different indeed. So yeah, every time that happens, that there is a wound and it doesn't heal, like any of your doctors or whatever will say, yeah, we should probably let that heal. We should probably let that get back to normal. Very few doctors will look at an injury that can heal. Like, I'm not talking about an amputation or something like that, but like, as a scrape or a cut or something like that. Very few doctors will look at you and say, well, it's just the way things are, sorry. They will do their best to stitch it up, bind it up, heal it up so that injury can heal, so you can be made whole again. And that's what Christ wants for us too. He doesn't want you to just be perpetually wounded, injured, damaged forever. He doesn't want you to justify that and say, well, it's just who I am. I just happen to be an injured, wounded, aggrieved, damaged, broken person. Instead, he's going to say to you, what I want is for you to be whole. I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. Thanks for joining me on my commute today. I am happily here at the office with no damage done. I look forward to seeing you guys again on my next commute, or on Wednesday or Sunday, whenever you can tune in. Be safe and stay faithful. We'll see you soon.